This rather old book, titled Lyric Religion by H. Augustine Smith, The Romance of Immortal Hymns, may be of historical interest to some. Lyric Religion, The Romance of Immortal Hymns by H. Augustine Smith. Director of Fine Arts and Religion and Professor of Church Music, Hymnology and Allied Arts at Boston University. Editor of the New Hymnal for American Youth, Hymns for the Living Age, etc., etc. In this book, Professor Smith writes in a clear and interesting style of 150 hymns, including practically all of those favourites known to every churchgoer in America. The text of each hymn is given, including original stanzas, which are no longer sung, and in many cases the hymn tune accompanies the hymn. Then follow the biblical passage on which the hymn is based, and the story of the author and of the hymn. An analysis of the hymn and its usage in worship is also given, and where possible, services of worship are appended using the hymn in a natural setting. Picture services and dramatizations are included where they are suitable. Professor Smith writes not only from a rich historical background, but also from a thorough knowledge of music and a real love for his subject. This is a valuable handbook for ministers, directors of religious education, organists, choir singers, and leaders of church schools. And this is published by Century Company, publishers of the New Century Dictionary, New York City, USA. We have also created a playlist of the many songs listed within this book, and they vary and are very interesting and very nice. Not all of them are to our taste, but yeah, they are very nice hymns. Lyric Religion, The Romance of Immortal Hymns. Forward. Hymn singing is vital to Protestant worship. Luther wrote hymns for his people, that God might speak directly to them in his word, and that they might directly answer him through their hymns. Hymn singing has again and again risen to high tide at Edessa in Asia Minor during the 3rd century, in Milan, Italy during the 4th century under the guidance of Bishop Ambrose, during the Crusades and after the Crusades in various sections of Europe, carried thither by flagellants, troubadours and court musicians. Throughout the Reformation and the 30 Years' War in Germany, during the Watts and Wesley days in Great Britain, and in America, led by Lowell Mason and the singing school masters, and quickened by missionary propaganda, lay evangelism, and the social mindedness of Protestant religion. Congregational singing is showing signs of weakening today because of the sophistication of church people and their easily acquired habit of listening in rather than participating, their futile attempts at emotional expression, and their consequent suffocation in the midst of organ and choir, priestly monologues and symbolism. New organs and effective playing of them, attractive and Catholic hymn books, efficiency in lighting and acoustics, choral and orchestral leadership all may help toward a hymn singing renaissance, but these alone cannot bring in the new day of universal song. The hymn itself must be elevated to a high place in worship through reverent and thoughtful singing at all times. It should be lifted off the floor where conventions, conferences and social gatherings, Sunday night pulpit services and evangelical song leader tricks have all but tossed it through their singing anything, anytime, anywhere, amidst confusion, jollification, the inauspicious entrance of late comers and last minute errands, making it something of a sporting mania. Those who sing from hymn books today are fast becoming students of lyric religion, searchers after its hidden treasures, its factual history, its romance and biography, its geographic and international implications, its interest to the foreign traveller, its brilliant metaphors and pictures and drama, its processions, coronations and reformations, its call to battle and to peace after victory, its shrines of worship. In short, the spiritual experience of the human race through all ages. Ample time is needed, 15, 30, 45 minutes behind closed doors, free from interruption, to build these immortal lyrics into life-size statue. The Sunday morning service, with all of its fixity and lethargic poise, is increasingly emphasizing one hymn with two more as satellites, and giving time, position, facts and interpretation to make the major hymn glow with light and warmth. Lyric Religion, this particular book, presents 150 hymns as studies, interpretations, syntheses, bases actual worship procedure, pictorial life of the past and present to arouse lethargic congregations, ministers, song leaders and organists to a discovery and appreciation of and enthusiasm for hymns. Every legitimate device has been used to stir the imagination, strengthen the will to sing, and so live out the teachings of Jesus and follow his torchbearers who in all ages have sung the faith that was in them. The author is grateful to his editorial associates and so forth, and to many ministers and so forth. Okay, and he dedicates it to the memory of his mother. Boston University, September 1, 1931. H. Augustine Smith. Contents page, there's 150 hymns there. As we stated, we have created a playlist that you can listen to in relation to these old hymns at the end of this video. Illustrations. Lyric Religion, the Romance of Immortal Hymns, A Mighty Fortress is Our God. That's probably the first song on our list, in our playlist. And it gives a history of this particular song. Biblical text, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth do change, and though the mountains be shaken into the heart of the seas, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains tremble with the swelling thereof. The Lord of hosts is with us, the God of Jacob is our refuge. Psalms 46, 1, 2, 3 and 11. Lighting the Protestant fires around the world. The greatest hymn of the greatest man in the greatest period in German history. With its magnificent tune, also by Luther, it quickly spread over all Germany and overnight became the unrivaled hymn of national days, church anniversaries and world crises. Carlyle said of it, there is something in it like the sound of alpine avalanches or the first murmur of earthquakes, in the very vastness of which dissonance a higher unison is revealed to us. Many a Huguenot died joyfully as a martyr with this hymn on his lips. Gustavus Adolphus's entire army sang it just before the Battle of Leipzig. 400 years of constant and ever widening use have served to enhance rather than to dull this Luther hymn. Martin Luther, 1483 to 1546, is known as the Apostle of the Reformation. He was also the father of congregational singing, for with him began the chorus of congregational praise, which has resulted in the publication during 4 centuries of 100,000 German hymns. His first hymn book, 1524, contained only 8 hymns, 4 of which were by Luther himself. This was only 7 years after his famous 95 Theses were nailed to the church door of Wittenberg, and only 3 years after the Diet of Worms. The occasion which led Luther to write hymns was the burning at the stake of 2 youths of Brussels in 1523. Their crime was their profession of the Reformed faith. In honour of these two martyrs, he wrote his first hymn. Soon all Germany was singing, and hymns became one of the most effective agencies for the advancement of the Reformation. This particular hymn, A Mighty Fortress is Our God, is a paraphrase of the 46th Psalm, which both reflects it and goes beyond it. And that might be from the Handbook to the Church of Hymnary, 1927, by James Moffat, copyright by Oxford University Press. So you can listen to that song at the end of this video, and it seems to be a photo there of where Luther wrote his translations of the Bible and his Ein Feste book. There's a photo there. It is a spiritual tonic for the discouraged and distressed. Conflict with the Prince of Darkness, grim. Difficulties like a flood of mortal ills. The world with devils filled, threatening to undo us. All of these are reminders of Luther's heroic words on entering the city of Worms in 1521. Though there be as many devils in Worms as tiles on the housetops, I must go, he stated. And of the equally heroic declaration before the great council there, he said, I am bound by the scripture, my conscience is submissive to the will of God. I can recant nothing and will recant nothing. Triumphantly rings out his confidence in the man of God's own choosing. From age to age the same, who surely must win the battle. Every line of each of the 4 stanzas is important. None should be omitted or left out or taken out. 1 or 2 may be sung, the remainder read in concert. The 4th stanza is meaningless unless following the 3rd, because that word refers directly to the last line of the 3rd stanza. One little word shall fell him, or make him fall. The text is majestic and powerful, inspiring a conviction of the invincibility of Christ's followers and the inevitability of his cause. In England, the translation by Thomas Carlyle takes precedence. A safe stronghold, our God is still a trusty shield and weapon. In America, the favoured translation is by Reverend Frederick Henry Hedge, 1805 to 1890, who was born at Cambridge and who, while still a child, travelled in Germany with the historian George Bancroft. Subsequently, he was pastor of churches in Maine, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island, USA. More than 30 years of his life were spent as professor of ecclesiastical history in Harvard Divinity School. The hymn tune. Luther was an accomplished amateur musician and is credited with a number of chorales, either original or arranged by him from Latin chants, vernacular sacred songs, and secular folk songs. As a boy, he was an excellent singer, and he became increasingly skillful as a flute and lute player. This is a type of guitar. He passionately loved the art. This tune forms the central theme in Meyerbeer's opera The Huguenots. Mendelssohn used it in his Reformation Symphony, Wagner in his Kaiser March, and Bach in one of his sacred cantatas. Abide with me, fast falls the eventide. It has the lyrics to that, and a biblical text related to that. And they constrained him, saying, Abide with us, for it is toward evening, and the day is now fast spent. And he went in to abide with them. Luke 24:29. Even as the Father hath loved me, I also have loved you. Abide ye in me in love. John 15:9. At evening time there shall be light. The afterglow of a radiant Sabbath drenched Brixham with quiet splendour, but under the greying glory there was gloom instead of peace. That morning the village pastor, weak and ill, had preached his farewell sermon. On the following day he was to start for Italy in hope of recovering his health. Loving eyes were turned to the rectory, where in the lowering darkness a light shone from the study window. That afternoon some of the villagers had seen their pastor walking in the garden among the flowers he loved. Many prayers were said for him that evening. In the study, the pastor, the Reverend Henry F. Light, was busy at his desk. He was not writing next Sunday's sermon. He realised that he would probably never preach again. He was writing a hymn, the words and first music of which he handed to a relative when he came out of his study that evening. Not an academic literary production, but a song of the heart, Abide With Me, came out of the experiences of that day and of the days of weakness and illness which had preceded it, out of the grief of farewell which had made the morning service so difficult for the sick man that at times he had wondered if he could go through with it, out of the peace and quiet beauty of the afternoon in the garden in sight of the sea he loved, out of the soothing glow of the sunset came this great hymn. Earlier in life he had written in one of his poems a prayer which was happily fulfilled in his last song. O thou, whose touch can lend life to the dead, thy quickening grace supply and grant me, swan-like, my last breath to spend in song that may not die. Henry Francis Light, 1793 to 1847, was a native of Ednam, Scotland. He graduated from Trinity College, Dublin, and after being jostled from one parish to another, he went to the village of Brixham, England, as a curate. There he gave his life in ministry to a parish of villagers, fisher folk, a few soldiers from a neighbouring garrison, and occasional visitors. There Light entered into the spirit of his own hymn, Jesus, I my cross have taken. He relinquished society, culture and everything to follow Jesus. He took up the cross of his hard labour and carried it successfully until his death. It was there too he wrote his swan song, Abide With Me. The day after that Sunday he started for Italy, but went no farther or further than Nice, France, where he died, pointing upward and saying peace, joy. He was buried in the English cemetery at Nice. The hymn tune, the tune Eventide by William Henry Monk, 1823 to 1889, is almost a perfect hymn tune. It has adaptation to the text, singable melody and parts, sound musical writing and a haunting, unforgettable quality. It has the downward slant of an evening tune, also a low and limited range, as contrasted with the upward and extended tone flights in such tunes as Nicea and Laudes Domini, where morning is in the keynote. Eventide has much elasticity, bending to the softest and slowest breathing of hold thou thy cross before my closing eyes, stretching and square timbering to such challenges as I fear no foe with thee at hand to bless. And where is death's sting? Where, grave, thy victory? It is all accomplished within the range of 6 tones, and through a total of 40 black and white notes. Dr. Monk wrote this tune at a time of great sorrow, a fact which further explains its appropriate wording to Dr. Light's words. Mrs. Monk writes of it, together we watched the glories of the setting sun. As the last golden ray faded, he took some paper and penciled that tune which has gone over all the earth. Dr. Monk was a man of deep religious conviction and devotional feeling. He always sought worship values in his church music. The organ was to him an instrument, not for the display of skill, but for touching the souls of men. He was a champion of congregational song, and saw to it that the church in which he directed their music for nearly 40 years, St. Matthias, Stoke Newington, was a hymn-loving church. He was the musical editor of hymns, ancient and modern. His word was so authoritative that it was often called Monk's Book. Henry Francis Lyte composed a tune for this hymn the same night that he wrote the words, and gave both into the keeping of a relative. The original Lyte tune follows. Henry Francis Lyte's own music for Abide With Me. Next we have Again as Evening's Shadow Falls. In relation to a biblical text, let my prayer be set forth as incense before thee, the lifting up of my hands as the evening sacrifice. Psalms 141:2. And it goes on about Sunday Vespers in Brooklyn. And more information on that. And the next one is All Beautiful the March of Days with lyrics. And in relation to a biblical text, Psalms 147:16 and 17, and Psalms 19:2. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. And the glory of the winter land. There is no hymn about the beauty of winter. This was strangely true when Dr. W.C. Gannett and Dr. F.L. Hosmer were compiling the hymn book, Unity Hymns and Carols. In it they were planning a section for the hymns of the seasons. Spring songs were available, many summertime songs, a number of autumn and harvest home songs, but nothing for winter. So Dr. Garnett wrote to his friend Mrs. Frances Whitmarsh, while asking if she would not like to write a hymn for winter. All Beautiful the March of Days was the result, not that it came all at once, full grown in all its present beauty. Far from it. At intervals throughout a whole year's march of days, the editor and the author worked at it, revising, changing, eliminating, substituting, until finally the winter hymn was complete. Mrs. Frances Whitmarsh Wilde was born in Bristol Valley, New York in 1878. In her childhood, this beautiful valley was secluded and quiet, especially in winter, when the mails came only once a week. It's letters. The first stanza of the hymn, with its reference to a silent loveliness on hill and wood and field, was inspired directly by winter scenes in Bristol Valley. The author's later years have been spent in Rochester, New York, where she had been one of the founders of the Women's City Club, and where she had taken an active part in the movement for the larger place of women in civic affairs. Analysis. First stanza, all beautiful, not merely summer and its roses, but also winter with its wonder crystals of the snow. Silent loveliness. In the second stanza, and it continues to the third, and so forth. And here are 20 women hymn writers and their hymns. And it continues. And all glory, loud and honour, and history of that. And in relation to Psalm 24:17 and Matthew 21:10, 11, 15 and 16. All hail the power of Jesus' name, with the lyrics, and then the biblical text that was inspired by Isaiah 62:3, Revelation 5:11-13, and Revelation 19:16. A song of triumph in times of trouble and persecution. And this book continues with 150 popular hymns, of which we have tried to put in order through our playlist. So if you enjoy this and you like to hear those old time hymns, Then subscribe to our channel, give us a like, add your comments below this video, and then share this particular video, very different kind of video, with everybody that you know. And go and click on the end playlist of our hymns, and see what you like. And you're not going to like every one of them because they're really, really old, but there are some really good choir sung hymns, right, in amongst them. Angel voices ever singing. Art thou weary, art thou languid? As with gladness, men of old. These are really, really old classic hymnals. Through Highland, wir sind hier in German. It's probably just a piano bass one. And then here's a song, At Length There Dawns a Glorious Day. There's the lyrics there. Before Jehovah's awful throne. In that sense it means amazing, spectacular. Beneath the cross of Jesus. Blessed be the tie that binds. Break thou the bread of life. Some really nice hymnals here. Breathe on me, breath of God. So, as we just stated prior, if you like this, that we've brought something different, then subscribe to our channel, give us a like, add your comments below, we'll get back to you on those as soon as we can. Tell us which ones you like, which ones you couldn't stand. We'd be interested, right? We're really interested, because there's some here that we really like, and others it's just like, oh my gosh, what the hell is that, you know? Yeah, we're genuinely interested in what you listened to and what you found awesome and didn't like. Thank you for taking the time to watch this, our latest different video upload. Don't forget to share it with others.